Hi, Nigel here with the Drive Wire, and hot off the heels of the review I did for the Bolt EV, I have the 2022 Bolt EV. Slightly smaller, it's fun, it's practical, and extremely affordable. So today I'm going to review this car and let you know if I think it is a hot EV hatch or not. So what's new for 2022? Well, this car has a refreshed exterior, a refreshed interior, it has more range, and it also is now the least expensive EV on the market in the US. It's also the same color as the one that I had last week, the Bolt EUV, so I'm wondering if Chevy only has just the one can of paint. So the most obvious change for 2022 is it now has a less toy-like playful appearance. It's much more grown up in general. Really like these signature LED lights. They're much narrower than the predecessor, and then the main headlights have been relocated to where the fog lamps were previously. The whole look is a lot more cohesive, a lot more grown up. I think it really works. So at the back, the tail lights are narrower, which is the theme these days, and then below here in the bumper, these reflectors have also been made particularly narrow as well. I think the look is pretty good. It's not as different as it was at the front, but it still looks really good. And then of course there's a lot of piano black, which is really annoying, but that is unfortunately the trend these days. And in the back, you get approximately 16.7 cubic feet of space. You can obviously put these seats down for 57 in total. I still don't really like this super thin sort of luggage cover. And then the other thing I don't like is this thing here, which does actually pull completely out to provide more space. But the way it's been designed is any weight here, and it just sort of teeter-totters. So dogs don't like it, as I found when I put my dog in here and he put his foot down on there. So to solve that problem, I had to wedge a couple of blankets underneath to stop it tipping when he was standing on it. So yeah, not a great design. The EUV had a much better design of this particular thing. It lifted, it had a hinge in there, and you just opened it up like that. Much, much easier. So under the hood, the power plants are identical, EUV or EV, 150 kilowatt motor, gives you 200 horsepower, 266 pound-feet. Obviously single speed transmission to the front wheels. It is lighter though than the EUV by 100 pounds or so, and it's a little quicker, so it scoots to 60 in around 6.5 seconds. So that's pretty much on a par with the Kia Niro and the Hyundai Kona twins. So this one has a price of $34,200. It's an LT2 version. It's got the Bose stereo system and a couple of other goodies for $595, plus adaptive cruise control, but no Super Cruise. Super Cruise is not available on the regular Bolt EV. You got to get an EUV if you want Super Cruise. I wouldn't spend my money on it. If you saw my review from the previous week, I'd say it's a no. This one's fine with adaptive cruise control on its own. That takes the price including destination to a little over $36,000. Of course, bear in mind that Chevy's going to discount this car by over $6,000 next year, which makes this thing an absolute bargain and under 30K. Standard wheels on this are these 17 inches. They're kind of nice looking wheels, and then these Michelin Energy tires, they do squeal a little bit, and I think what I'd do is I would sacrifice a few miles of range and get myself some grippier tires, just because it wheel spins all the time. And then the brakes, they're pretty good actually. Some of the best brakes that regen that I've ever had. It regens most of the time, so you'll probably never have to change these rotors during a lifetime, but it stops for a while, so can't complain there. So the Bolt's a great little commuter car. It's got 259 miles per charge. The battery's 65 kilowatts, and it offers both level 2 and DC fast charging. So if you put it on level 2, which is a regular home charger, expect it to take 6 to 7 hours from empty, and about an hour to reach 80%. It's a little slower than the Kia Niro. That'll charge at 85 kilowatts versus the Bolt's 55 kilowatt max, so bear that in mind for longer trips. So this is where you're going to lose out to the EUV. It's still got the same sort of minimal clearance for your head, and for me the legroom's fine, but for a lot of people you're a little bit squished because you've got like an additional 3 or so inches of legroom in the back of the EUV. But I don't care. I like this the way it is. You got a couple of power outlets right there, and then you get a nice little, very well made, good quality materials. And on this LT2, it's leather facing with the seats. Yeah, not bad at all. So the interior at the front is pretty much identical to the EUV. Great infotainment system, physical controls, nice leather covered steering wheel on this LT2 model, leather face seats, as I mentioned. Nice little bit of storage in here. Inferior, slightly scratchy plastics in this center console, but hey, again, that sort of Honda style gear selector. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's generally fine. No Super Cruise, as I mentioned earlier, but everything else is pretty well made. It hasn't rattled or squeaked. This particular test vehicle's done almost 5,000 miles, and it's quieter than a church mouse inside. So with the EUV, I really didn't mess with the sport button too much, but in this car I think it makes a pretty big difference. Without the sport button pressed, it sort of rolls a little bit, the suspension doesn't feel that tight. It's super comfortable when it's not in sport mode, but when it's in sport mode, it's a little bit more fun to drive, as I will show you now. It doesn't unfortunately tackle the problem of the wheel spin or of the tires, these eco tires fighting for grip when you turn the wheel and then stomp on the power at the same time, but I don't think this car meant for that. But I wanted to see whether we could call this a hot or a warm hatch. So let's go ahead and find out. So depress the button, sport mode is on, the wheel steering does get a little heavier, and the suspension definitely feels firmer. So off we go. Definitely feels a little smaller than the EUV. And again, it does wheel spin, but it's definitely quick. We're just cruising along here. Let's try 30 miles an hour. Get up to 30, stomp. Wow. It's actually entertainingly quick. The steering does pull. There's some torque steer, which is exactly what I would expect. And doing this is going to deplete the battery quite quickly, but let's try that again here. So let's just get up to say 30 miles an hour, 30 to 50. All right, 30 miles, whoop, too fast. Okay, so doing 30 miles an hour, and we're gonna stomp on it. Wheel spin, 50. 70. It's pretty quick. Feels quicker than the numbers suggest. I think getting 6.5 seconds out of this car from 0 to 60 is going to take quite a few tries, just because it's going to wheel spin. But once you've got that grip, it's a little bit like my old Spark that I had. Once it had grip, it let the full 400 foot-pounds of torque through the front wheels, and it surprised a lot of people. So the downside of the whole thing is that when you're on the freeway and you get up to higher speeds and you decide you want to pass someone, you know, doing 70, and obviously break the speed limit, the limiter kicks in at 92, so the power just stops. And so if you're in the middle of a maneuver, it can be slightly dodgy, so you got to be careful of that. All right, so we're doing, let's see here, we're doing like 50 miles an hour, and then we're just going to stomp on it. Off we go. 70. I mean, this isn't what a normal owner is likely to do, right? I mean, but you can make this into a fun little car. And the accelerator pedal feels definitely like it's giving you more power earlier on rather than letting it sort of fade in. Obviously, that speed limiter that I mentioned earlier is more to do with sort of preserving battery, making sure that they can honor the warranty, and also these eco tires. Regen is really good on this, just like it was on the EUV, and then you pull on this paddle here to get more regen. So if we take this corner here, you can hear that the tires are just hopeless, which is unfortunate, because I think with good tires, I mean, any tires would be better than these. I mean, Michelin makes great tires, but when they're eco tires, they're just terrible. They have no, very low rolling resistance. There is something very nice about electric cars. I mean, this thing's not Tesla quick, obviously, but it's faster than a lot of cars on the road. You know, you can hear sometimes these big, pickup trucks with their big old V8s, and by the time you've stomped on it, their transmission's still thinking about changing, and you hear their revs rise, and then you hear the gear change, and then they're like 200 yards behind you. So that's kind of fun. So even in sport mode, it rides really nicely. Steering is a little more precise. Taking a corner at speed here, it really does get up to speed remarkably well. We are slightly going downhill. Now we're getting a massive amount of regen, to like 55 kilowatts of regen. That's the beauty of driving this car around town. You probably won't use many miles at all if you stay off the freeway. Yeah, I'm actually really happy with this little car. I drove the first one when it came out in 2017 and I really liked it. This one improves on that. As I said, a little bit more range. It feels just as quick. It feels solidly made, which is never usually a Chevy thing. They normally do, I don't know, some of the stuff isn't always perfect, but this seems to, I feel like this is, no pun intended, bolted together quite well. I think they've done a really good job. Well, what do we think? Well, this is a great little car. It is not a substitute for a Golf GTI. It's not really a hot hatch. It's a little more of a warm hatch. It will surprise those owners though. It's 30 to 50 and 50 to 70 acceleration times. It's a quick little car. What it can't do is replace the ability in the turns that the VW GTI has or other real hot hatches have. So which one would I get? I'd get the little EV. I don't need the additional space in the back. I don't carry long-legged people very often. This is a great little car and an absolute bargain. I mean, for less than 30K for a 23 model for next year, this is great. And it's got great range. What Chevy needs to do with this car though is give it a faster onboard charger, because it is simply too slow. It won't accept more than 53 kilowatts at any time, and a lot of the competition are 85, 125 and higher. It needs to charge quicker on a DC fast charger, and then it would be a useful cross-country little car. Right now it's perfect as a little suburban runabout, and it's quick and it's fast and it's very enjoyable. Anyway, once again, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Like, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time with another video.